This is a Baretta Special that I bought from a kid on OfferUp. It ended up being just something he just wasn't into, so I benefited from that, and I paid $100 for this guitar. So starting up at the headstock, I put in a Goto locking nut. They're nearly identical to a Floyd. I can't really tell the difference, but works very well. And then coming down here, as you know, these Barettas have beautiful necks. This one is just perfect. What I decided to do here, though, after doing some other experimentation, I bought this Schaller vintage tremolo system. And if you look at it, it's kind of like the original non-microtuning Floyd. But it has, not sure why we can see it here, it's got roller saddles. So very smooth, but I did a little something different to this one. This one has my locking system. So when you come over here and you look at it, you may be able to see there's set screws, and they push on little pins to lock the strings in place. So it kind of acts like a Floyd Rose, but it's a standard looking bridge. So overall, I'm pretty happy about the way that the paint job came out. First striping out the yellow pattern that I wanted was some kind of a vinyl tape. Then I had to go and I had to mask off the blue, which was a real pain in the butt. I would never do that again. And you can see what kind of happened here. I had some sand through down here, and then down here there's some more. But overall it came out pretty good for a first shot. A little more sand through there. But I figure, you know, if Eddie can make a mistake, I sure can. So if you look closely here, you can see the little rollers here on the saddles, really high-end, made in Germany bridge here. And then I add locking nuts here. I've done that for a long time, but that locks down the saddles kind of like a Floyd Rose, where it just doesn't move around at all. And if you look closely here, you can see how the strings literally go toward the magnets, or they just move around, just completely slack, but they're locked in place due to my locking block. The block that I use is similar to this one, and as you can see here, it has the set screws there, and they push on little pins in these little machined slots, and then the little pins actually engage the string to lock them down so that they don't move anywhere. Now this one is from a PRS style guitar, because you can see that it's got the push-in trem arm insert there, where this one is just a block without that on there. So anyway, but that's how that works. And if you see, what this does is that when you back off the screw, you can see that the little pin moves back and forth. So to demonstrate how this thing works, all you've got to do is, once you've got your strings in, if you got the guitar in tune, you just go ahead and you just get yourself a T-handle. I got this like Harbor Freight, just a cheap little T-handle. You can use a normal Allen head, and you just tighten them up. They're already, at this point, you're not really having to tip it very far. I've got it tipped a little bit more than you need just to demonstrate, but you just do that. And you just got to hold it just enough. You're not going crazy, just enough to let it set in place so it can't slack up when you go way, way down. So that's the whole point of that. If you look here, look at the strings, because they're locked down at the block. Look when I bend the bridge, how the strings are, how they're like literally held up into place where they can't go anywhere. And that's because the hole where they're locked is not even a ½ inch from the hole, more like maybe 3/8. So because of that, when it comes back, it goes back into place. The whole thing is that once you've put a locking nut on the head of the guitar, then those strings can't move up in the nut and at the tuners with the stretch. And there's about, 3 to 5 inches of stretch in there. But when you're down here, then what these would have been doing is the balls would be moving down into the hole and stretching over on the underside into the block and over the holes, and that's why a guitar will go out of tune on the bottom once you do something with the nut. So the one end forces the other end. You got to lock them both. No doubt that's why Mr. Floyd did what he did when he added the locking bridge. So a little bit more about the block here. When I go full production, we're going to have all of them will have push-in, or at least the option of push-in trem arms, which is a whole lot nicer. And all of them come with this back cut here. And you look from the side there, that's so you can actually, dive a little bit further without hitting the body or having to modify the body. So you may be asking yourself, why did I come up with this system? Why didn't I just get a Floyd Rose? Well, truth is, I do have a couple guitars with Floyd Roses. But the deal is that there has to be hundreds of thousands of guitars out there, very classic guitars, Fender Strats, other guitars with, 6-screw trems, or maybe the 2-point trem that come on a Fender. And they may want the functionality of a Floyd, but they don't want their guitar not to have that traditional look, or they don't want to drill holes in their classic guitar. So the first one that I did was actually a white Kramer Baretta, and I wanted to see what I could do with the standard trem. And so I actually modified it, created the very first locking block on that one, just using the crummy stock zinc alloy block. And I tested on that guitar and it worked so well. I did it on several other guitars, which I'll show you in a moment, but it gives you that ability to do that. And as you see on this one, it's just a very low profile bridge. So being able to have a low profile bridge that functions normally and you can lock it up and have tuning stability seemed like a win to me. So that's why I did what I did, and that's why this went on this guitar. Before contemplating a striper style guitar, I would recommend to anybody to, when you put the paint down, let it dry for about 2 days before you even think of putting a clear coat on it or wet sanding it. Let it dry really, really well, because what happened with me is I put the yellow stripes down and then wet sanded it within not even a day, and then I laid down the clear coat. And what that did, it on quite a few places, it started to wrinkle and blister. And that is what happened up here. I tried to save it before having to literally sand the whole guitar down and throw away all that beautiful blue. And really, I don't really care that there's a little bit of wear. I wouldn't call it relicking. I would just call it my own mistakes. And you come around here on the edge, you can see some more, little bit of sand through right there. A little bit right here, but I think it kind of, gives it a little bit of character. And really, I made mistakes, and that's just what happened. But I think it's really cool. I know that Eddie never made a blue striper. I was actually going to think of doing like the Bumblebee, because I think the black and the yellow were really cool. But when I saw this blue with it, I just thought it would be a really cool thing to just make a blue version of this thing. And this is it is definitely Eddie's pattern, but I changed it a little bit. You can see that my stripes get bigger on the edges, so I wanted them to be sort of a kind of a tapered looking stripe. I prefer that for what I do, and any stripers I do will look like this, just be different colors. But anyway, that's what I did here.